Hello, peeps. Today we are going to do some long division together, and hopefully, working on it together will kind of help you to help firm up long division for you. I'm going to use graph paper because I feel like graph paper kind of helps me to line things up, and since I'm showing you how to do it, I want to make sure that you can see exactly where every number is going. Remember, if you want to use the trick that we talked about where you flip binder paper, that works great too. Okay, so I'm going to start out by putting my name in the corner. And today we're going to do lesson 3.4. And we're just going to do numbers 4 through 12. So what we're probably going to do, if we're only doing 4 through 12, that means we're doing 8 problems, right? So we're going to take this paper and we're going to fold it into 4. So I'm going to go like this. 1, like I'm making a vocabulary diamond. And that way I will have 4 on the front and 4 on the back. Okay, so we're going to put number 4 right here. And then we'll put number 5 right here. And number 6 right here. And number 7 right here. Okay. And so let's look at number 4. We're on page 119, and it is, I forgot to, I'm sorry, I wrote pages 4 through 12. We're on page 119 through 120. And it's numbers 4 through 12. Okay, so we're going to look at number 4. And they're showing us 3 different rows. We're just going to do one row because I think it gets a little confusing when they do that. So we're just going to show one step of doing the problem, but we're going to show the thousands, the hundreds, the tens, and the ones. And that I think is a little bit more helpful. So we're going to start out with, I might turn it this way just to turn it a little bit so that we have more room. So we have 8, and we're going to divide 6,100. Okay, and so we're starting out with 6,100. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to look at the thousands first. And I know that if I looked at the number that's in the thousands place, 8 will not go into 6 because 6 is too small. So I would say that that probably goes 0 times, right? And 8 times 0 is 0, 0, 0. And that is my thousands. And my answer, I get 6,100. Now I'm going to look at my hundreds place. Okay, so this was thousands. And now I'm going to look at my hundreds place. So this is going to be hundreds. So I cover over the tens and the ones, and I ask myself, how many times will 8 go into 61? And the answer is it goes 7 times. And 8 times 7 is 56. And it's 56, and we have 0, 0 on the end, right? So when I subtract, I'm going to get 500. So now I'm dealing with the tens place. So I'm looking at how many times 8 will go into 50. And 8 goes, sorry, low flying airplane. 8 goes 6 times into 50. because now I'm looking at the tens place, right? So I'm covering over the number that's in the ones place, and I'm just focusing on 50 because the 0 is in the tens place. 8 will go into 50, let's see, 6 times, right? And that is 48. When I multiply 8 times 6, I get 48, but not just 48, 480. When I subtract, I end up getting 20 from that, right? And now I'm looking at the ones place. So I'm going to say, how many times will 8 go into 20? Well, it goes 2 times. And 8 times 2 is 16. And when I subtract, I get remainder 4. So each one of these rows, every time you see one of these little lines right here, boop, 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 this first group right here is showing us the thousands. This second group right here is showing us the hundreds. This third group is showing us the tens, and the last group is showing us the ones. So it's really important to make that distinction and to understand that we're working with place value each time. In fact, I don't ever really write in my school books, but look, I wrote in my school book, in my teacher's book, thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones, because this is not how I learned how to do division, and at first I was really confused. And once I started looking at it from the viewpoint of place value, it made it really understandable and easy for me. Easier than the way I had learned when I was a youngin'. All right, let's look at number 5. Number 5 is 5,608, and I'm going to keep my paper going this way if that's okay with you, because I like that I have a little bit of width, because these are big numbers. So I have 5,608 divided by 6. So I'm going to go right here, and I have 5,608. Sometimes when I'm doing division, I leave the commas out just so that I don't have to worry too much about the commas. So this little chunk right here is going to be the thousands, right? So I'm going to say to myself, how many times will 6 go into 5? I'm covering all the numbers but the thousands number. And the answer is it doesn't. 5 is too small. So I go like this, and I put 6 times 0 is 0, 0, 0. So I end up with 5,608. Now this time I'm going to deal with the hundreds, right? So, and I'm going to get a number. So now I'm looking at the number that's in the hundreds place. I'm looking at the 6. And I'm saying, how many times will 6 go into 56? And the answer to that is, well, 6 times, let's see, 6 times 8 is 48, 6 times 9, I think 6 times 9, right, is going to be 54. But it's not just 54, it's 5,400, right? Because we're dealing with the hundreds place. So I'm going to subtract. And I'm going to get 208, right? And now I'm looking at the tens place. So I'm going to cover over the ones, and I'm going to say, how many times will 6 go into 20? 6 goes into 20, let's see, 6 times 3. So it goes 18 times. And I put a 0 on the end. Now I'm going to come down here to the ones, and I'm going to subtract. And I get to regroup that, don't I? And then this becomes 28, right? And how many times will 6 go into 28? 4 times. And 6 times 4 is 24. So I end up with remainder 4 when I do that. Okay? So remember, I'm just keeping my eyes peeled for place value. This first chunk is all about the thousands. This second chunk is hundreds, then tens, then ones. This is very different from how your parents learned. They probably learned about bringing down numbers and multiply, subtract, divide. And what we're doing is we're dividing and we're multiplying and we're subtracting, but we're not bringing down numbers. We're just concentrating on place value. All right. Okay, let's look at number 6. Number 6 is 2,117 divided by 7. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with, I know I'm going to have thousands right here. So I'm going to cover over all of the rest of the numbers except the number that's in the thousands place, right? And 7 will not go into 2. So 7 times 0 is nothing. And there's my thousands. Now I'm going to do, the next row is going to be my hundreds, right? So I'm going to cover over all the rest of the numbers except the numbers that's in the hundreds place. And I'm going to say, 21 divided by 7, that works. It goes in 3 times evenly, right? And 7 times 3 is 21. Plus the 2 zeros on the end because we're dealing with hundreds, right? So it's 2100. When we subtract, we're going to be in tens territory, right? So we're going to get 7, 1, and nothing else up here, right? Actually, we could almost say that we have 0 here. And if we're looking at the tens place, we could say we're here at the tens place. We could say how many times will this go, 7 go into 1? And the answer is, in fact, you could even put a 0 here if that helps you. 7 will not go into 1. 1 can't be divided by 7. So that means we're going to put a 0 up here. And we get 0, 0, 0, 0. And then we're going to deal with our ones, right? And when we deal with our ones, now we're not hiding the 7 like we were before. We were hiding it because we were only worried about the tens. Now we're looking at the ones place, and we're saying, 7 will go into 17 2 times. 7 times 2 is 14, and we subtract, we get remainder 3, right, is our answer. Okay, let's look at the next one. Again, remember, you can pause at any time. If you're stopping and trying to catch up, feel free to use the pause button. The best part about online learning is that in class there is no pause button. There's you raising your hand and saying, slow down. But the good part is that you can just press the pause button on YouTube and it will help you to understand the concept if you need to slow down a little bit. There are also a lot of people who work really fast at math, faster than me. So you can fast forward as well as using the pause button. It's awesome. Okay, let's look at number 7. We have 4,135 divided by 3. So remember, this first chunk right here is going to be thousands. Then we're going to have the next chunk, we're worrying about hundreds. The next chunk tens, and the next chunk ones. And you can even go like this and draw your little lines in. And you can draw little subtraction signs in because you're going to subtract each one. You know that that's what's going to be happening in advance. So first we're looking at the number that's in the thousands place. So I'm looking at 4. And 3 can go into 4. It goes 1 time. 3 times 1 is 3. And since we're dealing with thousands, it's not 3, it's 3,000, right? Then I'm going to subtract. Now I'm in hundreds land, right? So I'm going to look at the number that's in the hundreds place. I'm crossing out, I'm avoiding the 10 and the 1 because I don't care about those right now. I just care about the number that's in the hundreds place. I happen to also have a number in the thousands place because when I subtracted, that's what happened. Will 3 go into 11? Yes. 3 goes into 11 3 times, right? And 3 times 3 is 9. But because we're dealing with hundreds, it's 900. Okay, when I subtract, I get 235. Now I'm only dealing with the 10s, so I'm going to cross out the 1s. I just put my big fat thumb over it. And I'm going to look at how many times 3 will go into 23. 3 goes into 23 7 times, right? And 3 times 7 is 21. But because we're in the tens place, it's not 21, it's 210. Then we're going to subtract. We get 25. Now we're working with the ones, so I don't have to cover anything over. I'd happen to have something in the tens, that's fine. But I'm really looking at, I want to see the whole number because I'm at the ones place. 3 will go into 25. Let's see. 3 times 8 is 24. And when I subtract, I get remainder 1. So my answer is 1,378, remainder 1. All right. Let's flip it and try, we're on number 8. Let's try number 8. I'm going to just make my numbers this way because I know that I'm going to be going in this direction. So number 8 is 5, and we're dividing 4,165. Sometimes I don't put a comma, sometimes I do. Okay, so remember, you can set this up if you want. It kind of helped a little bit before to set it up, so I'm going to take a lot of little jumps, and I'm going to subtract each one, and this one's going to be thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones, right? So I'm looking at the thousands place, and the number in the thousands place is 4. And 4, I cannot divide 4 into 5 groups because 4 is too small. So I'm going to say 0 up here, and 0 times 5 is 0,000. When I subtract, I get the exact same number. And now I'm not worried about the tens or ones, just the hundreds. I happen to have a 4 here, and that's cool because if I didn't have a 4 there, then I couldn't divide it. So 41 divided by 5 goes 8 times. And 5 times 8 is 40, but it's not 40. We have to have 2 zeros here, right? Because we're in the hundreds place. Now I'm going to subtract, and I get 165. I am not going to care. I'm in tens territory, right? So I do not care about the 5. I just care about the number in the tens place. There happens to be a 1 here. That's cool. 5 will go into 16, let's see, 3 times, right? 5 times 3 is 15. But because we're in the 10 zone, we have to say it's 150. When we subtract, we get 15, and there's nothing past the ones place. There just happens to be this here, but we don't care about that. 5 will go into 15 3 times. And 5 times 3 is 15. So we have no remainder, right? It went in evenly. That's a miracle. I feel like they are trying to make them hard and have remainders, and it's nice to have one that's not difficult. So this one is 3,796. And remember, our first two little rows are going to be thousands. Now, if you had a smaller number, let's say you had 796, this would be an H, right? You wouldn't need 4 rows if this was a smaller number. You just need a row for each, a section for each place value, right? So if this 3 wasn't here, if it was 796, this would be an H and you would have 3 rows. Here's our next little chunk, and that's going to be the hundreds. Then we have the tens. Then we have the ones. And you can put your lines in here. It kind of looks like a fence that's on its side, right? Or like 2 letter M's next to each other. So now I'm gonna find the number that's in the thousands place. That's 3. How many times will 9 go into 3,000? Or 3? It won't go. So we're going to put a 0 there. And 9 times 0 is a whole bunch of zeros. When we subtract, we're going to get the same number. But this time, instead of looking at just the thousands place, we're looking at the hundreds place. How many times will 9 go into 37? Well, let's see. 9 will go into 37, I would say 4 times, right? And 9 times 4 is 36. But we have to have 100, 3,600, right? When I subtract, I get 196. I am only concerned about the tens place, so I'm going to cover this 6. How many times will 9 go into 19? Well, 9 will go into 19 twice. And 9 times 2 is 18. But it's not 18, it's 180 because it's in the tens territory, right? Now when I subtract, I get 16. 9 will go into 16, let's see, 1 time, right? With some leftovers. A lot of leftovers. So if I have 16 minus 9, I have remainder 7. So my answer is 421, remainder 7. Let's do a couple more. Let's do number 10. Why did we not have, let's see, 7, 8, 9... Oh, because we started with 4. Okay. We'll do number 10. So number 10 is 5,084 divided by 7. Again, you can set this up in advance. This is going to be thousands. This chunk is going to be hundreds. And we're subtracting each chunk. This chunk is going to be tens. And this chunk is going to be ones. And each chunk is going to get subtracted. So we're asking ourselves how many times 7 will go into 5? Well, it won't. So we're going to put a 0 there. 7 times 0 is 0, 0, 0, 0. And when I subtract that, I get the same number. Now we're asking ourselves, we're looking at the hundreds place because we're in hundreds territory. I'm covering over the tens and ones. I don't care about those. How many times will 7 go into 50? Well, let's see. 7 will go into 50 7 times. And 7 times 7 is 49. But we're in the hundreds place, so we have to make it 4,900. Now we're going to subtract. Now we're only looking at the tens, right? We're looking at the tens, and so we're going to say to ourselves, how many times will 7 go into 18? And 7 will go into 18 twice, right? And 7 times 2 is 14. But we're in the tens territory, so it's not 14, it's 140, right? When we subtract, we get 44. Now we're in ones territory. I don't have to cover anything over. How many times will 7 go into 44? Well, let's see. 7 will go into 44 6 times, right? And 7 times 6 is 42. So when we subtract, we get remainder 2. And we're done. All right, let's do one more. Okay, we'll try one more. So let's look at number 11. Number 11 is 423 divided by 4. This is a smaller one, which is good, because then you can see how a smaller one works. So if I'm dividing up my territories here, this is going to be hundreds, because this is the largest number is in the hundreds place. Then I have tens, and then I have ones. Hatao. Makes a crazy word. Hatao. All right, so I'm going to look at the hundreds place. Will 4 go into 4? Yeah, it goes one time. 4 times 1 is 4, but we're in the hundreds territory, so it's not 4, it's 400. Subtract. Now I'm looking at the tens, and there's nothing else that I have to hide, so I'm looking at the tens place, right? 4 will go into 21. Actually, sorry, I do have to hide that. 4 will go into 2. It won't go into 2. Sorry about that. And then now I'm looking, now that I'm in ones territory, I can look at this one, right? So how many times will 4 go into 21? 5 times. And it leaves me with remainder 1. Okay. All right. So I hope this helped you, and I hope this helps you to see that we're just doing place value, right? We're just looking at numbers based on place value. We do multiplication each time to get this number under here, we're multiplying, right? Every time we get this number down here, we're multiplying. And we always subtract each row. Okay? All right, I hope this helped you, and thank you for spending time with me working on long division, and I will see you later.